Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here is again my boring lectures channel from Kliving, Germany, with lectures online or remarks online. And the first nice information I have to give you is that in my first video, I just thought boring channel would be a nice denomination for a channel which is not yet used up or blocked by others. And then when I later checked it on YouTube, I found out 10 other people have already had all the same idea all over the world. So I had to vary and change the channel name a bit. Now it's called Boring Lectures channel, and probably that is going to remain, just to have a unique and memorable channel name. Good. So after having to admit that initial fault, I can go on and show you what I'm going to speak about today. Some friends of mine, perhaps, asked me if I could inform them with some basics on our study program, International Taxation and Law at Kleve. So about the what and why of that study program, because sometimes people wonder about why are people voluntarily ruining their lives with occupying themselves with something like taxation. And the answer is, well, everyone has different reasons, but here are the reasons why you should think about that. First, to give you the basic information, well, International Taxation and Law is a bachelor program. So after you finished your studies of, if you are okay with the time, 7 semesters, so 7 half-year units, you get a bachelor degree from the University of Applied Sciences. The focus is on taxation, just to make that clear. So the law things just cover that law background which you need for dealing with taxation. That is, by the way, relatively much, because when you deal with the tax problems of other people, you must exactly know what they are doing. So you must have an understanding of the legal treatment and the legal enforcement of contracts, of company law, and other things. So we confront you with the basics of all these things: civil law, commercial law, EU law. But in the end, you will, in all probability, work for a tax firm or a tax department of a firm, not as a lawyer. That's not bad, because although lawyers are familiar with laws, they usually have still a high respect for tax experts, because that is something which also the average law expert is not so really familiar with. And you will be made familiar that through 3.5 years. So that is relatively nice for them. The job chances are always good in that area, because tax experts, well, it's not very simple to deal with that, although the beginning and later, when you once are at it, it's not so difficult as it always seems. But we keep it a secret that that is the case, naturally. Why is the international aspect so much in the focus with us? The world is getting more and more globalized. And the problem is that people are often raised up in a way what their teachers learn from their teachers, and these teachers learn from their teachers. And so in the end, there are educational traditions where people are brought up in the same way, in the same basic way as, let's say, around the beginning of the 20th century. At that time, the world was simple, local, national surroundings. So in that time, it was customary to say, first we bring you up as if the rest of the world does not exist, and later, when you have finished look on the world, when you have a clear model of what happens in the world in your mind, and which is purely national, Then we wake you up and tell you at the last possible moment there are other countries. Okay, from time to time it might happen that there are some contacts to the outside world. There are special rules to that, well, and you will always then find this highly complicated, rather a pervert thing, because that is what you learned at the end of your studies. Now, our approach is different. We regard the other approach as a bit outdated. We think we should confront you from the beginning onwards that your country is a part of a bigger entity called the Earth. And so from the beginning onwards, we try to confront you quickly and thoroughly with the international perspective. So that we bring you up with the idea that you are not alone in the world, that, for example, there is much of cross-border relationships and trade and so on, and so that you always have in mind there is not only my country. For example, we think that is very much necessary for getting people used to, if you want to set up plans in a globalized world, that you directly have the cross-border problems which might come into your view. Now, why do you study that in English and not in German? For example, if you are from Germany, you will wonder why at a German university you should study law things, taxation things in English. And the answer is simple. It's the language of the world, especially of cross-border contacts. And so if you ever have to deal with international trade and international making money, then there is one simple rule. Whenever your firm has the first cross-border contacts, whenever you take part in a meeting which is or where is present somebody from another country, you will have to change in the whole meeting to the English language. And now there will be some people for whom this is a new experience, and there will be you. You have been brought up with the English language from the beginning. You will be able to get through that meeting without getting nervous too much. And so we think it is just best to bring you up from the beginning with the necessity to express yourself in English too, because that is what you always will have to use when it comes to cross-border information exchange or other things. Later you can still easily grade down your acquired knowledge to your own national domestic language, for example to German, just by going for some books, reading them on the matter in your domestic language, and then noticing the technical terms there and all the rest. That's usually far more easy than doing the other way around. If you were brought up in your native language from the beginning and then later have to get used to English literature, English expressions, and the English language to talk about all that domestic stuff in English, that's far more complicated than the other way around, and so it might be a good idea to start with English from the beginning. Later, if you have to learn the English in addition to your activities in the job, there will perhaps be no time, and that is one of the reasons. Then, naturally, teaching people in English is the only way to practice living and learning together in a really international community. In our study program, you usually meet people who really come from 10, 20 or 30 different countries. Sometimes we are surprised which countries in the world exist, at least where people come from. And it's always a great surprise and positive experience to come across people from other countries. So here you can practically experience intercultural contacts instead of only reading about them. And the last natural thing is, well, the whole international aspect is important because the international things are still regarded as complicated. By the way, they are not, but if you learn them in the last half hour of your education only, then you will always feel they are complicated. And now it is the international trained experts who are strongly missing in the markets. So that is why we bring you up in. Now, you will ask yourself, what are the natural consequences of learning in English? And here is a version for the Germans who are interested in that taxation study program. Well, the first consequence is you will have to learn English. We all know your language skills as beginners are low, but naturally you will have the task to improve them in the course of time. On that, I plan to make another video in the course of time, but some suggestions. Naturally, try to use every opportunity during your studies to deal with English, so to get familiar with that. There are videos in English, there are movies in English, there are YouTube blogs in English, there is even something like books in English. And so whatever you like to deal with, try out some English sources, then you improve your English sufficiently enough. And naturally, an additional expectation of employers will always be that you have made a look into the one or other book in your native language, that is in German. Applying for a tax job in Germany without having looked into some German books is probably a big surprise for German employers. You should not risk that. Naturally, we have a library where there are many opportunities for that. So just do it, and we will support you with that, by the way. Support you, or we can force you. Now the version for the non-Germans. Well, what is the consequence of having to learn the things in English? Well, the first thing is clear. You will have to learn English. That means your beginners' skills will be low, we know that, but in the course of time you should not avoid contacts with the English language. So there are YouTube channels in English, there are books in English, there are movies in English. For example, old, nice movies like Columbo in the original language in English. And so on. You can do everything what you like in English too, and so use every opportunity to get fluent and happy with English. And naturally, if you don't come from Germany and later go back to your home country, everybody, after they find out that you have been in Germany, will expect that you also know a bit of German. So whenever somebody has to make a telephone call to Germany, probably they will knock on your shoulder, say, "Hello, you were the one who has been in Germany, or who was in Germany a long time ago. Probably could you take up the task to do this telephone call?" And then it would be highly awkward to have to admit, well, the only German word I know is Guten Morgen. So naturally, try to pick up some basic knowledge of German. And again, if your English is at the end, after 3 years, still very bad, that would be bad. So improve especially that. Good. What will you learn? Well, again, massive things. The basics of tax legislation for income tax, corporation tax, inheritance tax, taxes on mergers and acquisitions, value-added tax, naturally an important thing. So the basics of all the important tax types which exist, and you will naturally be confronted or trained in how to read tax laws and to solve cases. Then a very important part of the stuff naturally is the international aspect. So how to read and apply double taxation treaties between countries. That is what most traditionally educated tax experts not really know about, or what is new for them. You will get confronted with that in the second or third semester already. Transfer pricing rules. As a beginner, you have no idea what that is. Just to inform you, that is something where, for example, Google and Apple sometimes do much of their games with when it comes to tax saving. And naturally, at the end, we will talk about international tax planning models and other things where the big multinational enterprises, yeah, we can say indulge in or are happy with, and that you can get a feeling how that works, what might be legitimate, what not, what will be the tendencies of international legislation in the long run, and all that stuff. And naturally, basics of civil law, commercial law, company law, and EU law, so that you will be able to have a good understanding of what is going on in the world. Because you know, legal rules are everywhere. Everything which we do is commanded by rules, and most people just keep them without knowing about them. And it might be a good thing if you work in the economy that you know about what the basic rules are and perhaps get a feeling that the rules change a bit from state to state. There are people who never have even a suspicion that if they move to another state, many basic things might be treated differently in that. And last but not least, naturally, also basics of business administration, bookkeeping, financial accounting, corporate finance, business mathematics, cost accounting and management accounting, marketing, human resources management, and whatever there may be in the field of business administration. Yeah, and now something which I nearly forgot to mention because it's the awkward question of what will your grades look like. And the answer is naturally, we would do you no good if we start an inflation and give everyone a very good grade. So we are rather conservative in that area. You must know that when it comes to tax experts, they are usually used to getting a sufficient or a satisfactory mark in their own tax advisors exams, and so they would probably be suspicious when 20 out of 20 people arrive with the top grade. And so our strategy is rather to make sure that somebody who passes narrowly an exam will still be tolerated as sufficient from people in the market. So the sufficient will mean that's not bad, but sufficient. And good will only be reserved for those who are really good compared with the average. So average grades are often satisfactory or sufficient. We once had even somebody who got the information from our administration, well, you have a satisfactory grade and congratulations, you are within the 20% best of your current fellow students. This is perhaps very much an exception. But experience says, and that is what you must know, because otherwise you might be demotivated, if you really learn hard. That is where we observed with students, if they really learned hard, they always were able to end up in the very much upper part of the scale. So the difference is, just to oversimplify it, the difference between sufficient is good is very often just the difference between learning hardly and learning hard. And so whenever you sit down and really regard your studies as a kind of a full-time job and really take it serious from the first beginning and work, practice, solve cases, pose questions, and deal with the answers properly, then your grades will be fine enough to impress everybody. And that is what I thought you should know. Now that should have been enough for today. I thank you for watching, and naturally I wish you goodbye until next time. recover well from having watched this video. If you liked it, press the like button and share it with others where you, yeah, just share it with others. If you didn't like it, share it with people whom you don't like and tell them urgently that they have to view this video. If somebody already recommended this video to you, then there is one last task for you to find out. Try to find out if they recommended that to you because they like you, or if you are one of the few cases to whom they recommended that because they don't like you. I can't help you with that task. Okay, goodbye till next time.